most people don't probably know what Uber is. Most people don't live in places where really cabs are part of the culture. But in major metropolitan areas around the country, there have been a couple of services that have popped up over the past couple of years that are web-based, that basically function as brokers and dispatchers for drivers. So, for instance, in New York, you have cabs. You have the yellow cabs. In Brooklyn, they're green cabs. You also have car services. I'm going to go to the airport. I'm going to reserve a car for tomorrow. Or I guess a lot of people like, hey, we're going down to the club. I'm going to call a car service. And the inside track on that was like, you got to get a good number, like 666, 666, 212, 66666, or 777, 777. And then there are sort of these gypsy cabs, which operate mostly uptown or in the Bronx, because regular cabs won't go there. As you know, regular cabs are required not to pick up black people in most major cities. And so they're basically sort of unlicensed car services that provide services for people of color, because regular cabs don't pick up black people. And that's actually a side story to this. But so a couple of years ago, companies like Uber, there's one called Lyft, there was one called Halo that has decided to close shop in the U.S. It didn't work out for them. And basically what Uber does is it hands out phones to taxi drivers, to these car service drivers, and essentially to other people who can meet some basic minimum requirements so that they can be their own car service. And you go on your iPhone, you order a car from Uber, or I guess your Android, it's an app, and you order the car. And the interesting thing about it, and Lyft does this too, is you can see where the car is as it's driving towards you. So it's no longer like, is this car going to come? I call the cab. Is it really going to show up? I've called dispatch 5 times. They never show up. You can see where the car is. And with Uber, and I think it's like this with Lyft too, you've prepaid, or you pay, basically you've given them your credit card or your PayPal account, and so you don't even exchange money with the driver. But on Uber, you can call a taxi with it. And in that instance, you do pay the taxi. They must give some cut to Uber or whatever it is. And it turns out that these Uber people, they have a great service. A lot of people love it. I mean, I know of a lot of African-American people who love it because they can get a cab, because they can order it on the phone, and the cab driver doesn't know, oh, this is an African-American. I'm supposed to ignore that. They can't do that. It also is very convenient, I think, particularly in places like Brooklyn, where there's no cabs driving around all the time. And you can call a service, but again, you don't know if it's coming if you do it by phone. But it turns out that the Uber executives are real pieces of garbage.
Yeah.
And over the years, they have done stuff like they play around with their pricing. They try and drive out competitors, all well and good, but they really take advantage of their drivers in some respects. Although, I've talked to some Uber drivers, talked to some Lyft drivers, and whenever I take one of those rides, I tell them that Uber people are trying to organize, because I want them unionized. That's what I really want. But they also turned out to be... apparently one guy told a reporter, Ben Smith, at Politico the other day at a dinner that he assumed was off the record, that he's like willing to spend $1 million to investigate reporters who write bad things about him. And now there's stories coming out where this tracking feature, they've done it on individuals who've taken their rides, and as a joke. And there's also this sort of these vague misogynist undertones. And so all of this is happening with Uber. It's unclear to me yet whether or not it's had an impact on their bottom line. If people have basically, online you see a lot of people saying like, I'm getting rid of my Uber app. And I've been using Lyft more often than Uber. in most instances because I've just been aware of this stuff and I want there to be competition, and I have a problem with sort of these deregulated services. Now, with that said, the taxi system is really messed up, and that's one place where Bill de Blasio is not great in this city. He's very much involved with the taxi lobby, and that doesn't help the taxi drivers. They get their clocks cleaned. So I have mixed emotions about the whole thing. But the funniest part about all of it is Ashton Kutcher, Uber investor. And by that, I mean specifically Uber. He's not like an Uber investor, although maybe he is. He's probably got a lot of money. Tweeted out the other day, what's so wrong about digging up dirt on a shady journalist? They were going to investigate this woman.
Sarah Lacey.
Sarah Lacey.
At Pando. Not
one of my favorite journalists, but nevertheless, it's inappropriate behavior, it seems to me.
Yeah.
646-257-3920. Carl Sagan, Sam. Oh, yeah, okay.
I would also say when you float an idea like that, the way I read it was something more like, sometimes you kind of run something by somebody else that you're maybe already doing, and you're sort of like, hey, hypothetically, we might do this. I wouldn't entirely discount the possibility that they already do some type of oppo research on people. And, that seems pretty obvious.
And I'll tell you what also strikes me is that now I know it's supposed to be off the record, but he's saying this to a reporter.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's indicative of you would think you'd have a little bit more sensitivities if you're talking to a reporter. Like, it doesn't even occur to him, like, hey, how's this guy going to react to this? Or maybe in his mind, it's like, just FYI. Let me tell you what I'm willing to do to your career.
That's possible.
If you F with me.
That's absolutely possible.
Or F with my company. I have no idea.
They're also not exactly, like, I've seen them give, speaking out of both sides of their mouths in terms of like, hey, we're great for drivers and we're an improvement. And a lot of drivers actually in these services, I feel like, will tell you that it's an improvement over driving for like a yellow cab or something. But then on the other hand, they'll say like, we're moving towards driverless cars and these jobs are going to be obsolete in a couple of years. And it's like, oh, okay. So wait a second. Is this a win-win for everybody, or is your plan to
driverless cars
literally
is stupid?
It's totally stupid, but it's a mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're just going to disrupt the whole road.